The Chicago Bulls fall to the New York Knicks 128 to 116. We're going to be talking about the key takeaways from tonight's loss. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest Buzelis slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. And so make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it as we're talking about the key takeaways from tonight's loss against the New York Knicks. And so I always like to start with the theme of the game. These are just points that really describe what we saw in tonight's game. And so I have three from tonight's game. And so the first one being that the Chicago Bulls were off balance on defense. I thought that they missed rotations. They left open shooters out there. And the New York Knicks really made the Chicago Bulls pay for it. And so they were able to knock down their three-point shots. They were really hot from there. Then also, too, the Knicks had much better energy than they did on Friday night. And so at one point, they were up in the second chance points category 17-9. The Chicago Bulls did win in that category by the end of the game, 18-17. But it just lets you know the type of energy that the Knicks had in this one. And then also, too, they were just locked in as far as making the Bulls pay every time they missed on their rotations and left them open. And so I think that that's the first point, off balance on defense. The next one being that this team was off their game on offense. I felt like the team was tight on offense. It felt like that they were a bit slow, and so they just didn't really necessarily have, quite that same pop or energy that they've had, throughout the first 5 games of the season. And so, I thought that that was the point out of the off their game offensively here. And then next, I think another thing that really factors into this is that Ayo Dosunmu wasn't out there. And so with Ayo Dosunmu not being there, he was out due to a thigh contusion. And so they say that he's day to day. With him, this is a player that puts a lot of pressure on the rim. We talk about it often with him being just a one-man fast break. And so, that was tough for the Bulls not to have him out there. And so I think that, if he were out there, that would certainly have helped the Bulls maybe get to another gear. And so you didn't have him. You do have to give the Knicks some credit. I think that they probably did make some adjustments, out there defensively. But still, I think that that was key for the Bulls. They were just off their game on offense. And so next, the Bulls just didn't meet the physicality in this game. And so, I think that the Knicks did a good job as far as getting the officials on their side. They got a ton of calls in this game. And so 22 times they went to the free throw line compared to the Bulls 11. And I just think that, some of these calls definitely should have went to the Bulls, especially looking at, just a couple sequences here. And so Jalen Brunson, he kind of pushes off, gets to the basket for an and one in the fourth quarter. I thought that that could have been an offensive foul. Then there was one play where it was like on an inbounds play, and I believe it was OG Anunoby kind of pushes Tre Jones, and then he gets the steal and he ends up getting a dunk. And so I thought that that should have been a foul. And then Karl Anthony Towns, there was a couple times here. And so Karl Anthony Towns one time driving down and kind of pushes Vooch out the way and finishes at the rim. And then there was another time earlier in the game where he just turns and literally just plows Jalen Smith over, and they don't call the offensive foul. And so, just the Bulls didn't get the call. They didn't meet the physicality. And so I think that that is point number 3 from this one. The Bulls just lost in the physicality battle today. They were off their game on offense. And then lastly, just off balance on defense. And so those are the 3. And so next, I want to go ahead and jump into just really, the starters and the bench players. And I always start with the MVP. And so, look, there's just one MVP on the night, and that's Josh Giddey. I think that Josh Giddey played with some great energy out there. I thought that he did a great job as far as just staying in it and competing. And so he had a triple-double, 23 points. He had 12 rebounds, 12 assists. He did have 2 steals as well, 10 of 19 from the field. And he was 1 of 5 from deep. And so 2 of 2 from the free throw line. And he was a 0 in the plus-minus box score. And so, I liked the passes that I saw from Josh Giddey. I love the pass that he got over to Jalen Smith, where he was able to finish finish at the rim. I like the fact that he was hitting him at that pocket spot for the three-pointer. And so I like that where he hit Jalen Smith there. He also hit Buzelis in the corner for a three. And so I think he had 2 assists actually over there that was critical to keep the Bulls into it. And so I just like the activity that we saw from him. And I love the fact that he wasn't hitting the 3-ball, but he was still finding ways to get downhill. I love the move where he spins and then throws it off the glass and everything else. And so Josh Giddey using his size, and I think that he had a very good game today. And so next, just kind of going into the rest of the starters here for the Chicago Bulls. And so starting with Isaac Okoro. And so with Isaac Okoro, I'm glad to see that he's still showing confidence on the offensive side of the ball. And so 14 points today. He just had a rebound. He didn't have an assist to steal a block. He had 3 turnovers, and he was a negative 18 in the plus-minus box score, 2 of 4 from deep and 6 of 11 from the field. And so, with Isaac Okoro, I like the fact that he let the three-point shots fly tonight with confidence because he has been struggling there. And then I like the way that he was running too, because Giddey found him, in transition. He also had a nice follow-up play after Buzelis thought he got fouled. And so I just like the hustle that I'm seeing from Isaac Okoro. There's a lot of stuff that's going to not show up in the stat sheet with him, but it's a good sign that hopefully he can start to get his offense going. And so next, with Buzelis. And so with Buzelis, look, I think that he showed more confidence, and I think that he's definitely showing some growth here. He was certainly looking for some calls. He didn't get them, but I liked what I saw from downtown from him tonight. And so he shot the ball with confidence. He was 4 of 6 from there, 66.7%. He had a nice corner three-point shot that I talked about. He had a nice deep three-point shot in the third. And then also, too, he had a nice three-point shot off some movement and stuff, too, as well. And so I liked his activity off ball. And so 14 points, the 7 rebounds. He had the 1 steal. He was 5 of 11 from the field, 45.5%. We just talked about the three-point percentage, and he was +5 in the plus-minus box score. And so Buzelis, solid game out there. Then next with Vooch. And so with Vooch, look, I think with him, just steady is what I see with Vooch. And so, Vooch, he ran the floor, I thought, pretty hard. I think that he made some timely shots, especially one that got tipped out to him. He knocked down the three-point shot, so just being available there. And so 17 points. He did have 14 rebounds. He had 4 assists. He was 6 of 10 from the field. He also was 3 of 4 from deep, 75% there, 2 of 2 from the free throw line, and he was negative 11 in the plus-minus box score. He did have some pretty bad turnovers there, and so I think that that's something that he's certainly going to want to clean up. And so Vooch still steady out there. Next, Tre Jones. And so Tre Jones, look, I think that it was a tough night for Tre Jones. I did like some of his finishes. I like the fact that he did knock down his three-point shot that he did get. He did miss one too. But it was a little bit of a struggle here for Tre Jones to kind of get things going. And so 15 points, 2 rebounds. He did have 5 assists. He was 6 of 13 from the field, 46.2%, 1 of 2 from downtown. We just talked about that. He was 2 of 2 from the free throw line and negative 18. And so that was the starters for the Chicago Bulls. Next, I wanted to go ahead and jump into the bench here. And so, I think that the first player that really played well off the bench tonight was Jalen Smith. And so Jalen Smith, 12 points in this one. He'd had the 5 rebounds, 5 of 7 from the field, and he was 2 of 4 from deep. And he also, too, got to the free throw line once. He missed that, but he was -1 in the plus-minus box score. And so Jalen Smith, I know it's been a bit of a struggle there offensively, but tonight I thought that he did a great job as far as finding it because, again, he knocked down a couple of these wing three-pointers, so that was good to see. And then I just love the activity off the pick and roll and stuff like that. And so hopefully he can continue with that. He's going to get a ton of opportunities, especially since Zach Collins is out. And so I think that he was definitely one of the bright spots here for the Chicago Bulls in this one. And so next off the bench here, Patrick Williams. And so Patrick Williams did get to the double figures tonight. He did miss a dunk, and he missed an open three, I think, towards the end of the quarter, but still 11 points, 3 assists in this one, 2 steals. He only had the 1 rebound. He was 3 of 4 from the free throw line, 3 of 9 from the field, and -8 in the plus minus box score. Dalen Terry in there for a little bit of time. He got a minute, and so he had 3 points in this one. He was a +3. Julian Phillips +2 on 6 minutes. Javon Carter did get into the game, and so played 12 minutes. He was a +1, had a nice assist to Jalen Smith in this game, and so 2 assists. And I think that, Billy Donovan probably had to go with Javon Carter because Kevin Huerter struggled with fouls. And so he got into foul trouble early in this game. I believe he had 3 fouls in the first quarter. And so that, I think, really kind of threw Kevin Huerter off rhythm. And so 7 points in this one, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 of 8 from the field, 37.5%, only 1 of 5 from downtown. And so he just never got it going. -15 in the plus minus box score with 3 personal fouls. And so that was the individual play there for the Chicago Bulls with the starters and the bench. And so now I wanted to go ahead and jump into the team box score and take a look at some of the key takeaways from that. And so the first thing here is that the Knicks shot the basketball pretty well from downtown. And so 20 of 42 from deep, 47.6%. You see that the Bulls were 42.5%, 17 and 40 there. And then the free throws. And so I talked about this. The Knicks got to the line 22 times. They did not miss in this one. The Bulls got there 11 times. And so they were 9 of 11, 81.8% there. And then with the rebounds. And so 47 to 46, a slight edge to the New York Knicks. With the assists, the Knicks win in that category, 31 to 28. Steals were even 7-7. Total number of turnovers, and so 14 to 11. Not a huge amount of like points given up off the turnovers, and so 14 to 11, still not a stat that you want to lead in, but not bad. And so with the fast breaks tonight, the Knicks had a bit more energy, and they were having a bit more success in that category, 24 to 19. As far as the points in the paint, the Bulls still got it done with the points in the paint, 54 to 42. You see the fouls there for the Bulls, 20 to 12. And you see that the largest lead for the Knicks, 25. The Bulls were only up by 2 for just a little bit of time. And so, a tough loss here for the Chicago Bulls. But you know what? I think it's a learning experience for them. I think that some of the other things to kind of take out of this game or notes here is that, the Bulls were outscored on the bench by the Knicks too as well. And so I thought that was an interesting stat. And so 46 to 30, the Knicks led in that category off the bench. Again, the Bulls didn't have Io, so that certainly would have helped them out. Also, too, the struggle there for Kevin Huerter. Then next, you still had 6 players that were in double figures. And so that's good to see that the Bulls were able to, keep some of their identity here, which is, having multiple players that are scoring and things like that. And so, again, you're not going to go undefeated in seasons and stuff like that. And so much more just a learning experience. And so a tough night tonight. And then I just think that lastly, this team was just off balance on both ends of the floor. And so they just weren't themselves defensively. And so that they're going to have to come with a lot of effort, and they just can't miss defensive assignments and stuff like that. The Bulls just can't afford to do that. And I think that that's exactly what they did. And then offensively, I just felt like that the Knicks slowed them down enough. And so they're still running, at a good clip, but you could just tell it just wasn't quite the Bulls that we've been seeing over the first 5 games. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking as far as your key takeaways from tonight's loss. Again, the Bulls lose 128 to 116. And so they will be back against the Philadelphia 76ers. We'll definitely be talking about that and just some of the major storylines just around this team as we ramp up for that game. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. And as we always say, look, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.